I'm going with Fairfield Prep in this game. Okay, I think that this is not our previous Cardinals. I'm going with Fairfield Prep. I'm sorry, Greenwich. I just don't see it.
They pushed Hillhouse up and down their own field. Now Masuk finally home. Tan's coming to town, desperate. I like the Panthers on their own field. Go get them, Nick.
I'm going to take Masuk. I think they're going to win. Like Greenwich, this isn't the hand from a couple of years ago.
The Gales at number 7. I even had them higher than that. I had them all the way at 3 after that big victory. I don't know where you had them.
I also moved them up to number 3.
Is Coginchaug for real? They will have us know that they are for real. But at Stafford, I'm going with the Bulldogs.
I'm going with Stafford in this one. I'm going with the Bulldogs, the Fighting Mazzonies.
Would I be shocked if Torrington won this game? No, not at all. But at least Woodland's got them in their own field. I like Woodland. I have a hard time picking against the Rams this spot. So I'm going to go with the Rams.
I'm going to go with Cheshire on this one.
Oh, boy. Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Meat Grinder. And if anyone feels like he's going through a sluice, it's me and Pete. Oh, my goodness. We thought this season was going to be wild. The first 2 weeks, I was kind of like, no, maybe it's not going to be so wild. But then week 4 happened, and well, I have no idea what was that. But the only thing we know for certain is that Darien is the best team in the state, but St. Joe is probably right there. What is that game? The whole season seems like it's going to be centered around that game in a few weeks, the end of the month. But until then, Pete, what? I'm sitting up here in Newtown. I'm looking at the scores on Twitter, and I'm just like, it's like Bizarro World.
Yeah, this is the year of the shoulder shrug emoji. I think I said that earlier.
I said that on Twitter. It just doesn't. Look, it doesn't make any sense to us. That doesn't mean the season doesn't make sense, but
it's been interesting. I think I'm past the point. You know when you like keep laughing and then you keep laughing and then you start crying?
Yeah.
That's kind of where I feel right now. Like I feel like the Joker. I laugh every time I look at the scoreboard. I'm like, what the hell? And then I laugh and then I laugh and then I start to cry and I'm cackling while I cry, and then I'm sobbing on the floor in the fetal position while I cry.
I'm gonna do a deep cut for all you 80s guys out there, but a lot of the kids, they won't know this one. But think about that scene from The Money Pit, where Tom Hanks and Shelley Long pour the water into the bath, and the bathtub just falls to the floor. They're just staring at the broken just destruction on the ground of their home, which is just falling apart around them. And Tom Hanks is just holding a bucket in his hand, just looking down, and he starts cackling. It's one of the most funny scenes he's ever done. But think about that. That's how I feel about this season.
It's been wild.
Well, let's just start with the top 10, because 5 teams got beat in the top 10. And Ned Griffin from the day when Atlanta was trying to figure out when the last time we had so many teams in the top 10 lose all at once. He went back to 2013. I mean, I think so. I think that sounds about right. But I mean, if you looked at the top 10 from last week, you saw number 4 go down. Southington loses to Hall. You have number 5, Newtown, loses 10-7 to Ridgefield. Number 7, Shelton gets obliterated by Trumbull, 41-7. The darling teams of Gales come into this week, riding high after win over Greenwich last week, and get just shown the door by Corbin Smith and Trumbull. And then number 8, Cheshire, Christian Russo doesn't play in our GameTimeCT Game of the Week. They have an 18-12 lead and end up losing that game 25-18. 5 top 10 teams went down. 4 out of the 5 top 10 teams, Pete, went down to unranked teams. The only ranked team to beat another ranked team was Greenwich at number 9, beating number 6, Fairfield Prep, in a game I saw on Saturday that was ugly. Greenwich glad to get out of there, but just carnage everywhere. And I think Greenwich coach Anthony Morello, whose team got just destroyed by Shelton last week, needed this one badly. He had the best kind of line of the day. He said, well, that's what we expected, is the unexpected. That's why you're seeing all this stuff.
Everyone's expecting, big wins and, 4 touchdown leads. And that's not the schedule that we have this year. That's not the team of guys that we have this year. We're 2 years removed. We have freshmen and sophomores starting on this varsity team. So we have a lot of young guys, really talented guys, and great senior leadership. But, it's not your prototypical just fall football season. There's so many other elements that are coming into it, and you're seeing that all over the state with a big win from a team one week, then a loss from that same team next week, and everyone's beating everybody, and it's kind of hard to gauge. And I think every team in the state is struggling with that in their own way. So it should make for great football games for the rest of the season across the state, and we're just going to keep taking it 1 week at a time, and hopefully just stay healthy and just show up like they did today.
I was talking to a coach this week where I think we might see a lot of 7-3 teams get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think we might see, we might not get an undefeated team going into the tournament. I mean, we probably will, but I think we're going to get fewer than we normally do, especially in like S or M, double L, maybe Darien, L, maybe St. Joe's, but they'll play. I think we're going to see a lot of 8-2s, a lot of 7-3s getting into the playoffs, and then it's just going to be a crapshoot because who the heck's going to know what's going to happen? We sure as hell don't.
It's a mess, Pete. But again, for pure entertainment value, it's absolutely, it's fun. It is fun in that way, and I'll say it straight up. I'm doing horrible in our picks. We're all doing horrible in our picks. And you know what? I could care less. I don't care because you know what? It's just the unpredictability of it is refreshing and it's fun. But when you think of all of that, there is the one consistent thing here this week. The one, you look at the whole 4 weeks that we've been through, the one consistent thing has been the FCIAC. Just as a whole, as a league. I mean, you look at this, we're going to actually jump into the top 10 real quick early. Here's the latest top 10 poll. And as you will see, going up from number 10, Southington, they lose to Hall. They're at 10, 9, Killingly, 8, Fairfield Prep, 7, Ridgefield, your boys getting in there. Number 6, Norwalk, number 5, Hall, number 4, Greenwich, number 3, Newtown, number 2, St. Joseph, and number 1, Darien. You look at that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of the first 6 teams, all FCIAC.
6 out of the first 7.
6 out of the first 7, all FCIAC. Ridgefield in there too as well. So
I mean, 8 of the 7 of the top 8 in terms of living in Fairfield County. Yeah. With Fairfield Prep.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's what we're looking at here. We're looking at Fairfield. It's Fairfield County, and then there's everybody else right now. Even we didn't talk about it last week, but even Hall jumps all the way up here to number 5. But even Hall had an iffy. They're an iffy 4-0. They almost got beat by Ward last week. They were down 24. Sorry, it was 26-22 late in that game. They needed a drive, Hall, to actually get down into the goal line, almost fumble the ball and the game away to Ward. And there are some pictures out there that got sent to us that even said that this fumble picked up for a touchdown late in that game to give Hall the victory and keep them undefeated. That might have even been a blown call. His knee might have been on the ground. But that's how close Hall was to losing to a Ward team, which, you know what, if I'm Ward, I'm like, we may not have been having a great season, but, we almost beat the number 5 team in the state. So there's something to hang your hat on there. But what does that say about the CCC and the rest of the state compared to the Fairfield County? If Hall barely beats them, then they turn around and beat Southington. And I know Pete was all over this off the air. Pete, give us your take on Hall right now in the CCC.
the state of the CCC is not good. That's it. The best team is Windsor. The best team in that conference is Windsor. Yeah. And if any team is going to be ranked in that conference in the top 10, it should be Windsor. I will say this. I did not have Hall on my ballot. I didn't vote for them with any of my 15 votes, any of my 15 spots. I did not vote for Hall.
I did.
And I'm not saying that they're not a good team. They're not having a good year, but there are better teams with one loss or two losses that deserve to be ahead of them. And, you know, we're not looking at resumes here. Look, I'll say this. I voted Ridgefield 3. You want to know why? They've played 3 really good teams.
Yeah.
I'm not impressed with the CCC this year. Windsor scored 22 points against St. Joe's, and they lost. Well, you know, other teams in the FCIAC have scored 21 points total, and that includes Xavier. You know, it drives me crazy about the poll. I slacked this to you off. You know, it drives me bananas. We're going to reward Hall for this great win over number 4 Southington, and then we're just going to punish Southington completely and drop them all the way down at the bottom of the poll. But I'll be honest with you, I didn't have Southington that high last week. I think I had them at 10, and they were at number 4. So I just think in a year of a lot of unknown, which we do have, and we spoke about that, so I understand the fluctuation of the poll every week. But, like, it's okay to look at a team with one loss and say, hey, you know what? This team's actually pretty good. Like, let's vote for who they are, not what their exact results are. Now, when you lose 5 or 6 games, that's completely different. But a Newtown team that's 2-2, their 2 losses are to Ridgefield and Darien. Yeah. How the heck do they fall out?
You are really on the warpath with the voters, and I share some of that with you. Although I did have Hall pretty high because I figure. And remember, I wanted to talk about that Ward game last week. I thought it was fascinating that they almost lost a Ward, which got destroyed by like the likes of a few of the top FCIAC teams. And, you know, then they lost to West Haven last week. You know, West Haven's okay, but, you know, that was a very interesting result. And then you saw Bristol Eastern, you know, everyone's singing their praises. They're 2-0, and they go to play Wilbur Cross, and Wilbur Cross just took care of them. You know, and then Wilbur Cross turns on, they get destroyed by Staples last week. So it really, if you look at the transitive properties, man, it's looking iffy right now for the CCC minus Windsor, which, yeah, they lost to St. Joseph but they kind of got taken right out of that game. We talked about
by 23 points, yeah.
Right. But then they turn around and they beat up a Wethersfield team everyone liked too. So I think you're spot on about the CCC, Brent. I think Windsor's the only really, I mean, you want to talk about Bloomfield sitting out there, maybe? They
don't play anybody.
So let's talk about some of these results here. I think we start off with the Trumbull one. And I watched the film on that the other night. You know, it was one of those games that, you know, I thought Trumbull, after they had almost lost to Fairfield Ludlow on a botched extra point that turned into the winning 2-point conversion by Corbin Smith. They barely lost to Ludlow. Ludlow, not bad, but like they barely lost to Ludlow. Meanwhile, Shelton's just running up and down the field on Greenwich. So I figured, you know, it would be a typical Shelton versus Trumbull game where Shelton just manhandles them. But Trumbull is having none of that, especially Corbin Smith taking this pass 45 yards from Hunter Agassi for a touchdown, put Trumbull up 6-0 after the first quarter, and then scores on this amazing one, the one everyone was talking about after the game, where he cuts left, cuts right, goes back against the grain, does a little deep move, and cuts back again and left, scores a touchdown and put Trumbull up with the extra point. Trumbull up 13-0, and that was big trouble for Shelton after that. They also had a turnover in there. Owen Solano scores on our 20-yard run. Then Ben Carley caught a 10-yard pass from Agassi. They were up 20-0 at halftime, 27-0 after 3 quarters. And then Corbin Smith again scores his 3rd touchdown on this 82-yard short pass from Agassi, goes all the way down, and that was pretty much it. Trumbull completely taking Shelton out of that game, and Smith added a 20-yard run after they had been pushed back after a few penalties, still scored. And just like that, Trumbull with a big win. Morris Petrosio talked about it after the game a bit, saying we hadn't had a statement game since I've been here. That was back in 2018. And here's Smith, who was just unbelievable, talking about the big win for the Eagles. He put them back on the map
I mean, I just think that's a huge step for us. They're ranked 7 in this state, and we really show what Trumbull football is all about for our first home game.
Smith had 7 carries for 52 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 6 catches for 178 yards and 2 touchdowns. Hunter Agassi was 20 of 28 for 354 yards and 3 touchdowns. And everyone should be buying the whole entire offensive line of Trumbull some pancakes coming up for this week going into the bye. But that's not enough, Pete, to get him into the top 10 of the poll. What did get in the top 10 of the poll was Ridgefield. And I went up there to see Newtown Ridgefield. It was like a game night decision for me to actually go up there. But you said I needed to see Ridgefield. You were on that bandwagon, Pete. And
I'm leading that bandwagon.
We'll talk about that.
I am the captain.
So I'm like, all right, let's see. I hadn't seen Newtown. I voted him number 1 earlier before they lost to Darien. I figured, what the heck? I'll go see Ridgefield versus Newtown. And it was my first trip to Newtown's Bloom Goal Stadium in 2 years. And Pete, let me just tell you how gorgeous this stadium looked. It's amazing what an all-time incredible state championship that captures the heart of the nation will do. And 2 years later, they got the new turf, beautiful new turf, the new logo out front. They got sponsors galore lining up and down the field. It looks like everybody just can't wait to give Newtown their money to get on the Newtown football bandwagon. They got the beautiful new scoreboard with the beautiful logo up on top with the replays and more sponsors and everything. The place looks absolutely great. Here comes Ridgefield thinking they're going to spoil the party. And from the outset, it was a defensive battle all the way. Let me tell you about the defensive backs in this game, especially Matt Shepard, the lacrosse goalie who led the Tigers to a state championship in lacrosse last year, showing his football chops off. He was batting down passes all night long. They could not throw on him or much of the Ridgefield defense as well. But Newtown's defense was just as good. And the only points we saw in the first half was Ignacio Brina, 35-yard kick. But then Ridgefield gets the ball back to start the second half. And Kyle Colsey, speaking of lacrosse, Kyle Colsey, head coach Ro Colsey's son, catching a little out on 3rd and long from Justin Keller, taking it to the house, 47 yards to put Ridgefield up, 2 scores, 10-0. But Newtown's response touchdown pass from Dylan Magazoo got wiped out for offensive pass interference. It was an all too common theme for Newtown, especially in the second half. The Hawks had 2 touchdowns wiped out because of penalties in the second half and nearly had a third put in jeopardy. But Newtown finally got on the board when, after a holding call wiped out 1st and goal, Magazoo hit Cam Ward for a 24-yard touchdown pass to pull within 3 points, but just could not get over the hump. Magazoo had another long touchdown, this time his running touchdown, wiped out due to holding. Newtown was just absolutely furious at these calls, but yet, despite all that, still had a chance to win the game late, had the ball twice in the final 5-6 minutes of the game, and had a golden opportunity to go ahead, but Ward, after catching the great touchdown pass earlier, just can't get his hands around this one. It was a heartbreaking drop. Looked like his feet might have got a little tangled up. There was nobody in front of him, and you get your heart pounding. And just a tough break, and then 2 plays later, Ridgefield takes advantage. Chris Reinhardt, who hadn't even practiced this week, much like played last week, because he had a positive COVID test that was then negative, and he only got cleared the day of the game, picks off the pass from Magazoo to put this one in the books, and Ridgefield, with the big victory over number 5 Newtown, and jumps into the top 10. You know, you were singing Justin Keller's praises last few weeks. But here's Justin Keller singing Pete's praises after the game.
Pete, I was listening to all the podcasts. I appreciate all the love. We're showing you that the Ridgefield bandwagon's one to be on there right now. So Ridgefield's rolling, baby. That's for Pete right there.
And there he is, Pete's driving the bandwagon, the Ridgefield bandwagon. Welcome aboard. If you're not on now, man, it's too late. Apparently all the voters just getting the memo on Ridgefield, putting them there at number 7. But what can you say about Ridgefield continuing to proving you right, Pete?
They're good. And Newtown's good. They're both good teams. It was a good game between 2 top 10 teams. But I'm all in on Ridgefield. I'm putting all my chips in the basket on the Tigers right now. They've just come out since, again, that 4th quarter against Greenwich, and they've just been awesome. And it's exciting to see. And they're a team that I think can really do some damage. They can maybe rupture that top of the FCIAC that we've had consistently over the past, 5 seasons.
Ridgefield, unlike so many of the teams from the FCIAC, SWC, and the SEC, do not have a bye. They go play Stanford this week. Then they get West Hill before October 22nd. They get St. Joseph, which should be a really interesting game to kind of kickstart a brutal 2-3 week stretch. St. Joseph gets Darien the next week after that, but Ridgefield flying high, and it looks like they're going to be in the consciousness for a while here. Pete, you got to go see a fascinating. We were talking all about Masuk last week, and Nick Saku and the guys screaming for our attention, and Hand was staring at an 0-3 start for the first time since since 1987. What can you say about that game?
What I will say is that Daniel Hand played really well. And if, maybe they're still trying to find their footing after their first 2 games where they started 0-2, 1-2 now. But I will say this about Masuk. Nick Saku is really athletic. And they were able to kind of contain him. But I think Steve Christie said it best in the postgame. This was the best team that Masuk has faced all season. And, maybe you look at their schedule in the first 3 games where, they should have won those 3 games. Masuk should have won 3-0 going into this game. And I think Hand was on a different level. And I think that just speaks to the SWC. And, maybe the conference isn't there yet in terms of, other than Newtown competing on the state level. This is a Hand team that is not the Hand teams of the past 3 or 4 years, yet they still dominated Masuk, an up-and-coming team, an exciting team that everyone wants to talk about. And Hand just dominated. It was close, maybe for the first quarter, 2 quarters. And Ethan O'Brien just got going on the ground for Hand. Just running with his head down, running over people. He had 3 touchdowns. Your boy Seth Schweitzer got going and won in 4 drives in 5 minutes of gameplay. He scored a touchdown, recovered a fumble, threw an interception, which Eric Becker was like, ugh, when I asked him the post game. And then he made up for it by intercepting the next pass. Your boy was all over the place. Hand looked really good, and I think Masuk is. I think their schedule helps them the rest of the way, but they saw a good team, and now they need to get that.
49-21. I did not expect it to be that much of a rout there, but O'Brien coming back from an injury that he'd suffered in the first game, and Schweitzer being Seth Schweitzer, an amazing player. Doing his thing and then putting Hand back, on a sure footing now, because that's a tough start. They lose to New Canaan, okay. Fairfield Prep, that game could have gone either way. Speaking of Fairfield Prep, I got to go see them, Pete, down in Greenwich. And, I picked Greenwich to win that game. I didn't think it was going to be I think it was going to be tough. But, as we mentioned to Fairfield Prep, they beat Hand, and it was looked good doing it. Then they beat Hill House and didn't look great doing it other than their special teams. They go up and they beat Connor 28-0. And now it's like a homecoming or whatever. It was a great homecoming at Greenwich. It was the first time we had their, show their beautiful new bleachers, their first game on their home field in 2 years. It looked like the Meadowlands. It was finally Greenwich has a stands and a press box and a facility that kind of meets the lofty expectations you might have for Greenwich. It certainly dwarfed the Scoreboard if you looked at it. The Scoreboard, remember how massive that thing looks? Now the stands actually match the Scoreboard. It was a nice spectacle down there, and it was a beautiful looking facility. They did a nice job at Greenwich. But then the game started, and I almost fell asleep, Pete. Other than a couple broken plays, the defenses played well, but Scott Erickson and I both there at that game trying to figure out, was it the offenses that were just bad, or was it the defenses that were really good? And I think we determined that the defenses were playing very well, but the offenses were not. They were dropped balls. The run games couldn't get going. It was a tough game to watch, and Greenwich needed this one badly, or otherwise they were staring at it. 2 losses already. You liked what you saw from Fairfield Prep going in undefeated. You were kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop after after the Hill House performance, and sure enough, there it was. 2 broken plays by Greenwich. Other than that, though, it was a pretty even game, and these are 2 teams that basically need to figure themselves out. But I did like some of the defensive guys there, especially our guy Michael Sinisi there, who looks like he dislocated his fingers or something like that. He had a big wrap around his hand. And he comes in. He was the first time he'd been playing defense since Pop Warner days, but they needed to stop the run because Greenwich clearly was not good against the run against Shelton the week before. He gets stuffed in the line there. I thought the defensive lines and the line, but they played very well for Greenwich. Fairfield Prep just had no answers offensively. They got the 1 touchdown, and that was pretty much it. But both teams very similar. It was just Greenwich happened to win this day, so a little alarming there for the Cardinals. Not only do they stay in the top, but they bounce all the way up to number 4, which, okay. I don't know if they deserve to be that high, but, as you said, there's a lot of inconsistency here. And so then there was the game of the week, Pete, and you were at your game, and we'll talk to Pat Miller of Norwalk a little bit later, but what did you get out of that game on Saturday?
Snoozing early. Look, Cheshire was without Christian Russo, their best player, and then lost their quarterback, Matt Jeffrey, on the first drive for the game. So Cheshire's going in for the whole game with their backup running back, their backup quarterback. Norwalk couldn't seem to get going offensively. We talked to Coach Miller about it, but it seemed like neither team wanted to get a positive yard, let alone score a touchdown. Obviously, they were trying. They just kept getting in their way. A lot of penalties, a lot of mistakes. And then the game just kind of picked up. The first half took forever, and then the game just started to pick up. And obviously, it ended with Norwalk winning. Ryan Gilchrist comes off the bench, the backup quarterback when Sean Brown got injured, hits Cam Edwards on a wheel route on 4th and 18, gives them the lead after Cheshire had gone down the field to score to take the lead 15-12. Norwalk goes down, scores on that crazy play. Cheshire tries to throw themselves back into the game, throws a pick six, 25-15, game over. It was wild. Huge win for Norwalk. First time they're 4-0 since 2011. That was Sean Ireland's first year with Norwalk. It was funny. Sean helps out at the football games. He does the 40-second clock in the press box. And so he came down after the game. And, Sean was there when I worked at the Norwalk Hour. So me, him, and Coach Miller were talking for a little bit. And I joked with them. And I said, Pat, now you need to go to the semifinals because, Sean did that. And then maybe next year Norwalk should just get another coach because first-year coaches have had such great success for Norwalk to start the year. But really good win for Norwalk. If they're going to make a run to the playoffs, they really needed to win that game because, upcoming, they have a bye. Then they go New Canaan. They have New Canaan, Darien, Wilton in 3 of their last 5 games. So, you go, I don't want to predict here, but if Norwalk loses all 3 of those games to New Canaan, Darien, Wilton, they have Staples on there too. But if they lose all 3 to New Canaan, Darien, Wilton, they should go 7-3, and that's potential for a spot in the playoffs. You win one of those games, you beat Wilton, you go 8-2, you're going to the playoffs.
What's the story with Russo?
I think he got hurt at the end of his game last week. I don't think he played in the fourth quarter, the second half of that game, and I just don't think he was healthy enough to play. Look, Cheshire has their eyes on the playoffs. And I think they want to make sure that Christian is healthy enough for the long run because it doesn't get easier for Cheshire. It does not. I mean, Cheshire, they play in the SEC. That's a big time conference. Good teams. I just think that they wanted to make sure he was around. I mean, look, they have a bye. Then they got Xavier, Newtown, NFA, West Haven, Shelton, and Southern.
Wow,
that's hard. So you want your guy. So if it was giving Christian 2 weeks to get healthy for that stretch, I think Don's looking at the long haul.
It was another big alliance week. I think we got 24 games out of the 26 or 7 that were scheduled. We have Amity's playing West Hill today, Monday, as we're recording this. You're going to run out there in a little bit. But the SWC went 5-6. The SCC went 7-10. The ECC 1-1, the CCC 0-1, and the Independent Capital Prep, which is part of the alliance, they went 1-0. They beat Bassick. The FCIAC, meanwhile, a robust 9-5. That probably might change to get later against Amity and when Hamden plays McMahon. But FCIAC coming out of the weekend 9-5, pretty good. Overall, The FCIAC is 14-10 in the Alliance games. That's the best record, followed by the SWC at 10-9, the CCC at 6-6, the ECC at 3-4, and the SCC kind of getting the short end of the stick here, although they play many more games. 16-20 is their record against the Alliance. Are all these games great? No, they're not all great. There are some really great matchups, and kudos to them for doing that. But, if you look at it, the average margin of victory in the Alliance games this week was almost 20 points. There were some just destructions out there. And that's not even thinking about Darien just destroying NFA, which was unbelievable. Starting quarterback, Miles Drake was out of the game with 9:33 left to go in the second quarter. So, it just kind of shows you how far the FCIAC is ahead of the ECC. And then, at St. Joseph completely dismantling Xavier the other night, Saturday night, when a game that I thought was going to be a decent one, but St. Joseph gave them no shot whatsoever. So then, and then the only other one that was curious was New Canaan, kind of in a little bit of a dogfight there with North Haven. I said it.
They didn't even have the ball in that game. I mean, North Haven was, they had a 9-minute drive. Like, it's hard to put up points when you don't have the ball.
Typical North Haven fare. I was like, Sags is going to make me eat my words because I said this sounded like a good idea at the time. I mean, listen, North Haven, good for them, able to control the ball. That's how North Haven wins its games, especially when they're, might be a little overmatched, which I think this year is fair to say. If you don't see it like you're a New Canaan, it's tougher to prepare for. So they were in a little bit of a dogfight. It was 7-7 early, 14-7, and then they added another one to barely get out of there. But, I saw New Canaan too, so I thought they were okay. But they're, among that group, the FCIAC is just kind of boss right now. I think that's the whole point, Pete.
Yeah, I will say this quickly about St. Joe's and what they did to Xavier and what they've done to every team. They go out and they punch you in the mouth, and then they just keep hitting you until you go into submission.
Yeah.
They come out firing. I would love to see the stat, but I would like to think that they've scored in every first drive they've had this year. I need some sabermetrics here, but I think that St. Joseph scored on their first drive every game this year.
Yeah.
And when you can do that and you can control and you can go up early, then teams are playing from behind. That said, that Darien game and the rest of St. Joe's schedule, I would like to see them play from behind. I mean, I think they're really good, and I have them at number 2 on my ballot, but, they come out and they hit you. And if you don't get up, they're going to keep pouring it on. And that's what they've done each and every week this year.
We talk about, Matt Morrissey. But what about Mark Morrissey, who was ridiculous, had an interception, 2 sacks, and another tackle for a loss, and gave Xavier no chance in that game, 42-7. So there you are, Pete. Number 1, Darien, number 2, St. Joseph, both with first place votes. I mean, then New Canaan, then Greenwich, and Norwalk at 6, Ridgefield at 7. And we're looking at it's the basically this season is kind of turning into the FCIAC Invitational. But what else, Pete? What else happened out there that was just kind of nutty that really kind of struck your fancy?
Torrington beating Woodland.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. What happened there?
Shout out to my boys. They ran the ball and they ran it well. And that's, I think I said on the Pick'em pod, if Norwalk can control the ground game, they will win. And that's exactly what they did. So shout out to Gaetan Rodriguez and the boys up in Torrington. Also, Coginchaug continues to win in the Pequot.
Oh, my God. Again.
Continue. We pick against them every week, and they continue to win every single time.
They told us to get on the bandwagon earlier. There's a team that was inviting us on the bandwagon, Pete. They were inviting us. Week 2, you saw, Toth and the guys and Mike Eagle. We're in a good spot. And we just didn't listen, Pete. I guess we just didn't listen. But that was an impressive victory of them. They're all of a sudden looking like favorites in the Pequot. Then there's also Cromwell, Portland, Owen Brunk, and the guys finally get their first game in like almost a month. Brunk had an interception, scored a rushing touchdown. He had 4 tackles for a loss, 10 tackles overall. Was dragging people all over the field, Pete, as they just dismantled Haddam Killingworth in that game, 41-3. And again, another game that I thought was fascinating. The ECC, this and that, and the other thing. But how about Austin Howe for Newington? Now, I said look out for Newington. That was a team that's on my radar after some pretty big performances. Then they go up, they start playing Middletown, and Middletown's kicking their butts. And I'm looking at the results on that game. I'm like, oh my goodness. I mean, is the CCD going to do this to me again? And but they came back. They rallied. Howe was ridiculous. He had ran for 52 yards and 3 carries and 2 touchdowns, 8 receptions for 117 yards and 2 touchdowns. He threw for a touchdown, had an interception, and scored a 2-point conversion. This kid is, I wouldn't say single-handedly because he's got a lot of good players around him, but without him, man, Newington would be in big trouble, especially against a Middletown team that was desperate.
Yeah, Austin Howe is he's putting up video game numbers. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Yeah. It seems like a lot like Anthony Simpson 2 years ago, Raquan Tompkins, the year, 2018. Like you're looking at these numbers and you're like, did he move the sliders all the way up to play the computer on easy mode? Like what he's doing is just incredible. And Jason Pace does a great job up there. Newington's a team that went to the playoffs 2 years ago. Looks like they might have another chance to get a shot at it, but they, their schedule is not, the easiest. They obviously still have dates left with Wethersfield on Thanksgiving. They got Berlin, Platt, Windsor, Wethersfield. I mean, Platt's 3-1. They got Berlin is 3-1.
Quietly, a quiet 3-1, right?
Yeah, they got those last 4 weeks, 4 games for Newington are not going to be easy. But man, the way they're playing now, averaging over 50 points a game or close to 50 points a game is pretty bonkers.
Joining us now to talk about that game is Jeff Jacobs, our columnist of GameTimeCT. Jeff, how you doing? Kind of a big win there for Norwalk. What can you tell us about what happened there? It looked like they were dead. Next thing you know, they were okay. They're 4-0 and now they're riding high.
Well, first thing, I have to lead with the real important stuff. After I believe it was you who poo-pooed Hall last week, and they promptly took down Southington, and my daughter's boyfriend couldn't make the game this past week. He's a volunteer coach with Hall because he went to New Hampshire to spring a surprise proposal to my daughter. So shout out to Wayne Brookbanks, who has an undefeated Hall team going there and is going to join. I'll be part of his family. He'll be part of mine. On the Norwalk look.
Well, congrats quickly.
Yes, congrats to Coach B, I like to call him. I came out of a Saturday sort of with a moral dilemma, fellas. I was really, and I wrote about it. It was really fun being around Norwalk. It was just, they were into it, and a team on the rise and a team has a lot of buzz. But I drove home, and even through last night after getting an email from an assistant coach at Cheshire, I really have a moral dilemma over like how we go about reporting injuries, how we go about reporting mistakes by players, mistakes by coaches in post-game interviews. And it's sort of like, you learn. I graduated from the University of Missouri. It's a pretty big journalism school. Been at this for more than 40 years, and you set a certain standards at like the pros and the colleges, and even at the high schools. But there's not a long list of do's and don'ts on reporting high school sports, and God forbid Little League sports. And I just get this feeling after a month into it, there are plenty of parents and coaches who kind of want to set the journalistic agenda, and either by not returning calls, not even coaches, athletic directors. And it's really interesting to me. We built that game as the game of the week, and it seemed like a lot of fun and a great showdown between Cam Edwards and Christian Russo. And we wrote a big story about it. And all of a sudden, Christian Russo didn't play.
Right.
And he was hurt. A surprise. Now we talk about our picks. They really are just for fun, because if injuries are part of picks, so they better be for fun with the high school thing. But I'm just wondering how far fun goes after the game. I asked Coach Drust 2 questions, and he gave me 11 total word answers. And the assistant coach emailed me, and I would never have made that public, except for he made it public on Twitter, that I had misrepresented what happened. I certainly didn't. I have it on tape. And I would just asked him about the last play on 4th and 18, and he said he's got to watch it, meaning the video. And then I started asking him about the 2 kids hurt because the quarterback left in the first quarter. I was about to finish with you still stood in there, and because you just talk about battling out, but I never got to that. He just interjected. Yeah. We don't talk about injuries, sorry. So I said, thanks, left. You want to be Bill Belichick? I'll call you Bill Belichick. I called him Belichickian. Didn't run him or anything, but he's a pro. And you guys tell me he's a wonderful guy. And I'm sure he is, and I'm sure he's a great coach, but I know what happened. And there's a lot of parents and supporters of various kids that don't want to hear anything even remotely that's not my coach and my team and my kids are wonderful.
Right.
And it's really got me thinking about what we're about coaching, about writing about high school sports. It really, it's just made me think.
I could totally see that existential crisis. And we talked a little beforehand, and I'm 100% with you. There are some things that we get told that we shouldn't be writing about. And my response to them is, are you kidding? I mean, like, everybody knows that. I mean, there are some, and we talked about this too off before we jumped in here. There are some things that high school reporters tend to sometimes leave out of games. We don't say when a thing happened, or we don't say who did miss that tackle, or maybe didn't make that play. And, and it's a dilemma. Should we be doing it completely unabashed, no holds barred, just let everything out because it's the truth? Or do you try and, because you're dealing with kids who are not professionals, they don't do this for a paycheck. Yes, there are scholarships at stake and big time things at stake, but that's down the road. And it's only for a handful of kids. For the most part, a lot of these kids are, what they do here is going to resonate down the road just in their personal lives. And that's it, and where do we draw a line? If so, and there are certainly times that I have been, put off by a way coaches will try and spin things. I don't like it, and I'll try my best to kind of give out the right answer, what I think is the right answer. And I'll say, if a coach doesn't want to talk about a certain issue, I don't know why. But there are also certain times where I will be like, I don't really think that is a big important part of this story, just throwing a kind of a kid under a bus. Sometimes I have been, I have held back a little bit. Like, I'll give you an example. I didn't really talk about who dropped a touchdown pass in a late game, in a tight game. But, we talked about it earlier today. But I didn't do it on social media that in the moment. I just, I just didn't do it. So yeah, there's a certain dilemma here. And then if the problem is, if you don't tell all these things out, you set a standard, and then people are saying, like, well, why did you say this kid made the error this time? And why?
I think we'd agree. If a kid picks up his 4th foul in a game, we'll write his name that he picked up a 4th foul in the game. If a kid throws an interception, we'll identify that quarterback interception. But if a kid boots a ball in the 6th inning of a game, we may not, I know we don't sometimes identify that kid. The kid Washington missed the tackle on the big play, 4th and 18. Okay. 3-4 minutes left to go in the game. 4th and 18, and Norwalk wins it. And we've promoted it as the game of the week. So for me, not to identify him as missing that tackle is unprofessional by me. I didn't say anything disparaging against it, just missed the tackle. My question for Drust was open-ended, was to allow him to say, hey, you may have seen a kid miss a tackle, but we blew coverage. A couple other guys blew coverage, or we knew it was coming and we blew coverage, or it was the missed tackle. I'm not putting any words in his mouth. I'm just saying that allows you to help tell a fuller truth. without embarrassing anybody. So, I mean, it's like I've seen things. I see kids take really stupid personal fouls during games. And my urge as a father, as a parent, is to put their name in the paper for them to learn it. But unless that turn the game around, I don't put that in there, because that would be like setting some, I'm not saying it's a wrong standard, but it'd be setting the Jeff Jacobs standard on that. It's not up to me to set every standard, but we listen to parents. Their Johnny never did anything wrong.
Right.
And if we listen to the other team, that other guy is a jerk and carve him up at all times. So there's a journalistic responsibility for covering high school that I'm not sure what it is. We go out and cover Little League games, which, heaven forbid, I don't even know why we do it. ESPN is that.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. I can't. I was well off that bandwagon ever since the 2000 Little League World Series. The whole, who was that kid throwing smoke?
Daniel Monte.
Like, yeah, Daniel. I was like, this is just too much. I'm off this train for good. But no, it's go ahead.
I just want to say, in closing on this, coaches are professionals just like we're supposed to be. And you got to try and give us the right kind of truths. And if you're going to pout after a loss, you run the risk of being portrayed as a pout after a loss. I'm sorry, as great a guy as you are, that's just, it isn't just what you do for your kids. It's what you portray in public also. I just barely mentioned it in the story. I have a little more than the mention. I mentioned it, and I'm not gonna. I think I was asked for an apology for it. There's no apology coming on that, but there is this right here on this show, trying to be a mature demonstration of what we face there. So it's got me thinking a lot about the way we cover high schools, because I've gone out of my way to write like untold amount of stories that were personal and things like that. And you have the kid talking about the most intimate parts of his life, and then all of a sudden we can't put in that a ball went through his legs in the 6th inning. So it's
I disagree with that. I disagree. I don't think that that's ever been a debate, for me at least. I know that there are other reporters and that's just the age-old question. Where does high school sports fit? What is, should it be covered like anything else, or is there a certain panache you need to have because they're, underage kids? Because, again, if they did something wrong in the real world, they got arrested, you're not using their names until,
right.
You know what I mean? You're not using their names if they got arrested, unless they're 18 or older or whatever, whatever the local jurisdictions are. So that's kind of like the dilemma to me, is what you kind of battle with in your head, at least. There may not be a law, but still you are dealing with minors too. And that's another important thing I think we need to remember too. But it's an interesting question. I think you bring it up, a great question. It's something, I'd love to talk more about. But anything else kind of tickling your fancy for this week?
Yeah. Who is number 4 in the poll? I'm more jacked up about that than I don't know the answer. I'm more jacked up about that, guys, than I was even in the first poll when I said that, like, I can't wait to see how it comes, because like now I'm paying attention, and like I spent about 20 minutes last night, yesterday, I was watching 8 different sporting events at one time yesterday on my day off, and I spent a long time trying to decide who was number 4. Number 4.
I think it's 1, 2, 3, and then you kind of throw your hands up in the air, and even then, I don't think we'll be completely correct. But
can I just ask you who you guys voted for number 4?
I voted Norwalk. I don't even remember that, but I voted Norwalk. They're undefeated, and they're in the FCIAC.
The Bears, so they got an offensive genius.
Yeah.
Whoever evidently is so creative that Cheshire knew the play that was coming, the 4th and 18th play.
Well, we'll have Pat Miller from Norwalk on in just a few seconds here to talk all about that play and everything else. So we'll ask him what he thought.
I voted New Canaan number 4.
Oh, whoa! Uh-oh! Then that leaves somebody number 3 that
has 1 loss.
Pete. All right, you know who my number 4 is?
Pete's Boys.
You're not gonna tell us?
Can you guess my number 3?
Pete's Boys.
My number 4.
You got to guess my number 3 first, though. That's my number 3. That's my number 3.
4. I went back on the notes. You sold me on this. You didn't tell me you're going to vote him 3, but I want that. You made a casual statement during the course of the game Saturday and told me to go back and look at game 1 and then the rest of their body of work. And Ridgefield started off awful against Greenwich and then outplayed them.
That game was 5 minutes longer. Ridgefield wins. And
then since then have been a tremendous team. So I don't know if they deserve to be number 4, but Pete's got them number 3.
Look, I'll be honest with you. They've played Greenwich, who was in our top 10, our top 5, outplayed them at the end. Should have won that game if it was longer. They beat a Xavier team that was number 8. They beat Newtown, who was in the top 5. New Canaan has played Bridgeport Central, Brian McMahon, Hand, North Haven.
Right.
I like Ridgefield's resume better.
All right. I love it. I mean, you look at those things like Cheshire. I didn't want to, they had their best player out for a big game, and I don't want to punish them too much. I dropped them some, but not too much. And Masuk, Masuk, we were just about to coronate, and look what happened to them. And then Shelton, who we did coronate to number 7, look what happened to them. You try to look at some of the different teams they played and run them against the smaller schools that are still winning them all. It was an impossible task this week. It was even more difficult than number 1, because number 1, at least nobody had played yet, and you could just kind of pick the brand names. This one had data, and it was still unbelievably difficult.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more craziness and uncertainty as we go forward. But I think you're right, 100%. I think the top 2 are solidified, and maybe even the top 3. And good news, they're all going to play each other at some point during this season. So, Jeff, thanks for coming on and giving us some thoughts this week.
Thanks a lot, guys.
And we'll see you down the road. Hopefully, everything we'll figure out the answers to these hard hitting questions as we go forward.
Take me through that wheel route play.
Honestly, I was terrified. I was looking over the sideline. I was waiting for Sean to come back in, but my hand was all slippery. I came in, I did it. Kudos to Cam, kudos to line for blocking. I can't ask for more than that.
We had to think of a creative way to get him the ball, and that's what we came up with. That's what we called, and thankfully it worked.
Our next guest probably needs no introduction because, we've written 100 stories about him. About him coaching the Norwalk Bears coming over from Sheehan. It is Pat Miller. It's 4-0 to start the season. Oh my goodness. It's like first time in 10 years since it was Sean Ireland's first year. They went nuts. Same year. Is that what happens here at Norwalk, Pat? You get a little grace honeymoon period where you go to the playoffs and then it's all just, hard work after that?
So don't give Doug any ideas that he'll fire me after this year and just keep getting the new guys in so that Norwalk can get off to good starts. I was actually joking with Sean that, hey, 2031, we get a new guy in and he'll do great.
One of these years, you'll win a state championship if you keep this up. One of these years. It'll happen.
Fingers crossed.
I think what you should do, guys, is you should get a staff of head coaches and just rotate who's the head coaches every year. It's not a bad idea, right?
I like my job.
Saturday after the game, Sean Ireland came down because Sean, he still helps out. He runs the play clock. How cool is it having, a guy like him around who maybe, you can lean on having experience at that school specifically?
Sean's the best. Anything and everything that we need, just trying to get used to it. Like he knows, how to get things at the school. He's been an open book, since I got there. He's like, hey, the cupboard's not bare here. You're going to have players and anything you need, just let me know. And I've gone to him as a resource countless times. So really lucky to have Sean still around and at the school and helping out.
Yeah, no, Sean was one of the first football coaches I got to know in the state. But speaking of coaches and on your coaching staff, and I don't know if Sean knows this, I noticed this the other day. Former Bunnell, UConn, and Buffalo Bill, Marcus Easley on the sideline. Now, quick story about Marcus, and we're going to get into how he's on your staff because I just find it awesome. A couple of years ago, Sean and I went to a Trumbull football game at Sacred Heart University.
Greenwich.
And Craig Bruno and Marcus Easley are on the sideline. So the four of us are talking the whole game. And then at one point, Marcus just turns to Sean and goes, "Don't think that I forgot that you left me off of your all Connecticut Post team my senior year of high school." This is a guy that went to the NFL, played it, I think, in the Fiesta Bowl, like played it, and he's still mad that Sean didn't put him on the all Connecticut Post football team back when he was in high school.
Yeah, except it's not true. It is not true. No, he was on the team.
We have the joke. I think he's the only NFL player that was never an all-state player. So.
No. I mean, that might be true.
He got Pro Bowl votes for special teams.
Let me tell you about Marcus. All right, so Marcus, it was 2004. He played for Bunnell. It was my first year doing it, and he was on the radar, and they played Stratford at Bunnell, and he had like a ridiculous game. Pick six, the whole nine. They didn't go to the playoffs, but it was close. I think it was 7-3 or maybe, but they picked. I said, we got to have this guy on. I was linebacker, blah, blah, blah. We put him on. He says no. And every time I hear his name, I think I got to find that paper that says, "Marcus, you're wrong." and I don't have it. It's not online. It's not, it's not, I don't know. Cause the Connecticut Post from since I worked there from 2004 until 2009, it's a black hole. There's no, they somehow lost it online. It's very upsetting to me. And right now we do not know. And Pete's nodding his head. I will find it. I have to go to the library.
Marcus is old. Maybe he forgot.
So yeah, how did that come together though with him joining the staff?
Yeah, I mean, it was I had just taken the job, and he emailed me, and he's like, "Hey, I saw you have some coaching availabilities open. Would like to come in for an interview." I saw the name, and I'm like, "Okay, if you could send me over like a coaching resume or a resume." And he goes, and then he calls me right away. He goes, "I don't really have like a coaching resume or anything like that. I don't know if you know who I am." I go, "Are you that Marcus Easley?" He goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "All right, yeah, we'll have an interview." So yeah, it was just kind of happenstance that he emailed me, and he came in. Usually interviews go for maybe an hour. We did kind of the normal get to know you stuff in the beginning. And then me and him went on the whiteboard, and we probably went for 3.5 hours down in the coach's office. And we just felt like we clicked together right away. And it kind of took a while to convince him to come on. We had to meet a couple more times. And then once that we had a 5-hour session of just going back and forth, him asking me questions, me asking him, just trying to get to know each other. And at the end, he goes, "All right, I'm in." And then, we celebrated that. And then when he met the kids, he's been such a big asset. The kids love him. He has such great insight, and we couldn't be happier that he's on our staff.
We could go on about, where you've come from. Obviously, you coached with John Faraz, part of that Farazi coaching tree that has like multiple coaches around the state. But what's been the biggest difference for you going from, an OC? You had 2 all-state running backs that you coached, and Zach Davis and then Terrence Bogan, to now being the head guy, being in charge of everything.
Yeah, it's really just that administrative stuff. When you're offensive coordinator, 100% of your time at the school is dedicated to football. Now it's the same amount of hours, same amount of work, but you can only squeeze in 50% of actual football stuff while you're looking at grades, while you're dealing with recruiting, while you're making sure kids are in class, making sure physicals are in, all that stuff. Is really the only difference. There's a funny story from our game scrimmage against New Fairfield. They got called for illegal man downfield, and the ref just kept making the illegal man downfield looking at our sideline. And I'm just looking, I'm like, "Yeah, good call." And he goes, "Coach, do you want to take it?" I go, "Oh yeah, you're talking to me now. Yeah, let's take it. Let's move that thing back. Yeah, moving back. Good call. All right, yeah. Man, it's preseason for me too. So, so just getting to use that kind of stuff is the biggest difference.
The Farazi coaching tree. My goodness, has it been that long? He's got a coaching tree now.
He's got it's Coach Miller, Gaetan Rodriguez at Torrington, Matt McKinnon at Wethersfield.
Yep. Mitch Azarian.
Yep.
Yeah, Mitch up in
Tallinn.
Tallinn. He's undefeated too, right? Did I miss something or did he lose?
No, they won.
They won. They're undefeated.
And then Chase Mayusier, he's the offensive coordinator at Simsbury, coached with us too. He'll be a head coach here before long.
Okay, right. So what happened to Farazi? He's the only guy with a loss in this state. You guys are going to go back and teach him a few things. My goodness.
No, he'll get those guys going. When we game scrimmage New Fairfield, that's a tough team, and that game went down to the wire. But he'll get those guys going. He's the best in the business. Getting the most out of those kids, and they've been a little banged up early on in the year, and he's starting to get his guys back. So they're excited. He'll get that thing right.
It was funny when Pollard had his first pick, Marshawn Pollard, and you see Coach Miller in the background. He does the fist pump, and then it was Farazi-esque. Just the scream, and then he flipped. Okay, guys, like offense on the field. I was like, that looks just like Farazi.
Oh, I saw that.
Learn from the best.
Yeah.
Learn from the best.
Just for everyone, where are you from? Where did you where'd you play? Where'd you go to school? And how'd you get into this? How did you get into coaching?
Yeah, I'm from Wallingford. I played at Sheehan. I actually played for Coach Farazi. I was on his first team. In 2005 season, I was a sophomore on that team. I think Coach was 25 years old when he took over that job, and he was just the guy that I kind of clicked with right away. Similar philosophies and things. And then I went on and played at Bridgeton Academy for a year up in Maine, and then I went to Plymouth State up in New Hampshire and played football up there. And then when I got out of playing, Coach Farazi called me up and he's like, hey, you ready to start coaching? And anybody who's played high school football, high school sports, if your high school coach asks you to do something, you're going to say yes. So coaching football is always something that I wanted to do. I kind of realized at an early age that I wasn't going to be able to go far as a player. So I've always kind of like looked at coaches and always wanted to do that. I remember walking to my first meeting at Sheehan thinking that, I knew football. I played my entire life. I knew football. And then I go in a meeting with Matt McKinnon, Gaetan Rodriguez, John Farazi, Mitch is there. These guys are talking football. And I'm like, what sport are we even talking about right now? This makes no sense to me. What are you guys even saying? So kind of learned, kept going from there. And the only thing I did well was I just kept showing up anytime those guys were talking, and just kept wanting to meet with those guys and kind of pick their brains and start figuring things out. And then, kind of worked my way up through. My first position group was wide receivers. I got to coach by myself, and that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me in my coaching career, because they didn't even let me play receiver in the backyard. We had to kind of figure that. So I had to kind of figure out how to do that. And,
you were always the kid, coach. You were always the kid who was the automatic, not automatic QB, but the automatic snapper.
They had me ref. I was the ref in middle school. was my spot. So, because I knew the rules and I wasn't athletic. So I know,
the disrespect. I can't believe,
That's right. So,
kids are cruel, man. They're cruel.
No, it was bad. It was bad, but hey, it's a creative solution to have me not play though, because I've still felt involved.
Yeah. But, it's these little setbacks that usually catapult, the more driven of us to greater heights, which is why you are in your situation that you are. You showed them.
That's right.
But what makes you're talking about the Farazi tree. What makes a Farazi coach? What's your, characteristic? What is this common thing that you guys all share?
Good hair gel, screaming a lot, but the intensity in the face that can flip right to a straight face. I mean, that's what I think of when I think of a Farazi coach.
Right?
Yeah, he's the best. He's the best at doing that. And it's actually, advice I've got was that, you got to enjoy those good moments, but you're also the guy who has to keep your head, on straight. So he has that delicate balance, but it's really the work and the preparation that he gets you ready for. No one prepares harder than Coach Ferrazzi does, and he expects so much out of the staff that, when we kind of move on, we have, he basically gives us a program and then we go find a school. It's kind of the way that he's able to do that, where he's always been open, but he wants guys who want to be head coaches. He kind of looks for that, and that he always asks in interviews. I've sat in a lot of those interviews. It's like, what do you want to do in coaching? And the guys who say, I want to do this, I want to do that. Those are the guys that he likes to bring aboard. So, I know I'm biased. I think he's the best coach in football, regardless of level, with all that he does and how he's gotten the Sheehan program rolling, which is, when you got guys like me playing out there who, again, ref in middle school football, he's got me out there to get where he has now, where, he's getting the Zach Davises, the Terrence Bogans, the Jordan Davises, those guys coming out and playing football. I can't say I can spend, hours and days talking about everything that Coach Ferrazzi has done for me and those other coaches on staff.
You're in another 2-school town.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a glutton for punishment?
Well, it's a little different. It's a little different in Norwalk. We have 2 double L schools.
Right.
We have over 1,000 boys in our school. We're one of the biggest schools in the state. So, it's a little different than that thing going there. We do have to share the youth pro, but Coach Q does a great job at McMahon. Me and him were over there watching the 7th graders playing yesterday. So yeah, well, you like to have them all coming to you, but it's kind of fun having another guy who knows how you feel exactly in those situations. So a little different situation we got.
But Pat, tell me about your guys here. I mean, like, you've been there 2 years. This is your 2nd year technically, because you were, you missed the COVID season. You got hired right before it. You must have been, well, first of all, what was that like, actually? You get there, and then also it's like, all right, it becomes this whole mess. What a way to start a coaching career.
Yeah, it was tough. Your heart breaks for those seniors last year, and we had an amazing class of kids. Tommy Brown, Donnie Miller, Austin Hall, Lorenzo Delfino. Those guys really led us. Isaiah Asmani, who's actually starting now at Fairleigh Dickinson. They led us through that, and they came to those practices, they attacked it, and they were just excited to be there and be around each other. So without those guys, I don't know if I would have made it doing that, but those guys just brought it every single day. We treated those 7-on-7 games like they were real games, and so those guys really got you through it, and we just did it. We just had to get through it, and glad we're on the other side of it.
So you kind of knew what you had. I mean, other than the linemen, actually getting down in the trenches and starting to bet. But I heard the word around in the preseason was that Norwalk was huge. They're massive kids up front. And then I didn't even know anything about Cameron Edwards. I mean, I know, because sophomore year, you just didn't hear about these guys. The record was what it was. And so, usually when I hear like, oh, this team hasn't done very well in a while, they got big guys up front. I'm like, that's usually what they always say. And it's always the same old thing. But like this group seems to have, really kind of taken it to heart and built themselves up into something here.
Yeah. Starting with our guys up front. They're the hardest working group of kids I've ever been around. They love lifting. It's their favorite. Then they're hilarious. They'll come, and it's just great to be around them, because it's linemen. They only have each other, so they bust on each other all the time. They're making fun of each other, but they're still lifting. They're still getting better, and I have to like kind of stop them sometimes. Like, oh, hey, we're going to the edge now, so can we can I do this here? It's like, guys, give your body a little bit of a break here. But those guys are a blast to be around. They work really hard, and they're really been the heartbeat of our team since we've started this thing. And then you put a back like Cam, who's special, big, strong, physical, fast, can make you miss, can run you over, has great hands. He's really a complete back. So when you kind of mix those together, you get to find some success, and we're glad we have him.
Yeah, it took a little time to going in that game. It seemed like you and Cheshire were just feeling each other out at the beginning. It seemed like no one wanted to get a positive yard, let alone a touchdown.
No, we did.
Beginning of that game.
I can't speak for them, but I know we did.
But once he got going, once he got rolling, and obviously the big play, Ryan Gilchrist coming in 4th and 17, 4th and 18. Kid hasn't thrown a pass in 2 years. He even told me after the game, because I was terrified.
Someone brought that Mark Twain quote up. I thought that was perfect. It's like, the courage is not the absence of fear. It's, recognizing fear and overcoming it. So we called that play at Sheehan in the state championship game. It was our 2-point conversion.
Yeah, you did.
It was a 2-point conversion to Jordan. We hit that. So it was a, what can we do? What can Ryan do to get the ball in Cam's hands here? And we knew it had to be tricky because Don does an unbelievable job with those guys. So we had to make it kind of a funky, kind of gimmicky play. What can Ryan do? And, he did a great job executing. And I'm thinking on my way home, like, we won the game. I'm ecstatic. We're all fine. I'm like, I don't know if Ryan's ever practiced that play. I don't know if he ever, I don't think he's ever taking a rep of that actual play. Like, we usually we treat that's like a trick play for us. We run those on Thursdays, and it's just a kind of a quick 10-minute period. I'm like, I don't know if I've ever gotten a rep there. He was asking me questions as we had the timeout of, what am I exactly supposed to do? I just remember hey, just give Cam a shot. So,
my goodness.
Oh man, I've been watching it just on loop, just it was incredible. And thank God it scored because I had nothing else.
Yeah. Those are those type of things where you look back at the end of the season and you go, wow, that really was a big moment for us, and look
it's
at
the DVD moment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's what they call it, the DVD moment.
I've been doing this a while. When you want to get into the playoffs, you need a game like that. You need a game like that you can get those points because they're going to go on. They're going to win a ton of games. But to pull that one out was huge. It was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, getting off to this 4-0 start, you have the bye, then you get New Canaan, you got Darien down the road. How important was it to get off to a hot start this year? Because, you look at the schedule, and it's like the playoffs are a possibility. I mean, not that you want to look ahead. You guys don't look ahead. Sean and I, we look ahead. We're allowed to look ahead.
Yeah, it's kind of, we looked at the schedule as a grand, in the beginning before we started, as we looked at this thing as a whole. Everyone on the staff realized how important these first few games were going to be, to really capture the kids and make sure that they know what's going on and keep them excited and keep them coming back, ready for more. So we're blessed to be 4-0, but we got a real one coming up in 2 weeks. So we can't look past any day, I just hope we have a really good film session today and a really good practice tomorrow. And we can't really look past any of that.
Tell me a little bit about the FCIAC, being in guys start, here in the SEC. What's the big difference? Is there a difference? What's, inquiring minds want to know these things, like coming from the SEC and then going right to the FCIAC. I want a little scouting report on each side. Like what makes each league what it is?
Yeah. They're different. The similarity is that there's just really good players in both those leagues. You see a little bit more of, teams in the spread formations down here, where up north it's more, you're going to see different sets, different formations. You're not seeing the North Haven single wing down here. You're not seeing, a whole lot of teams in triple option down here. But it's been amazing. The schools are so big that there's so many kids. And I was saying it last year during the 7-on-7 year. It's like every wide receiver in the FCIAC can catch. Like they can all go up and get the ball. So you can't roll your coverage to just one guy. expect to be all right. We'll take our chance with that guy. No, all of them are good. So that's kind of been the biggest difference between the two leagues right now.
The SEC guys are all puffing their chests out, especially Shelton when they beat Cheshire last week. Excuse me, when they beat Greenwich, they beat them up on the last scrimmage. They're a passing team. They don't see the ground and pound stuff and all that stuff. And then one coach from the FCIAC actually called the games in yearly a pillow fight, which I thought was kind of funny because everything's so spread out. But then when you look at the standings and everything, the FCIAC is just killing it right now. Killing it. You just look at the teams in there. It's ridiculous. Darien, St. Joseph, Ridgefield has done well. Greenwich has bounced back. And then how about you sitting there with can you even imagine? You have New Canaan sitting in there. Now it's like then Norwalk. It's just like you're right in the mix. What's that? I mean, what is that like?
That's something, we want to be in that conversation with those top teams, year in and year out. That's something we've talked about as a team a lot. We want it to be, this league is Darien, New Canaan, and Norwalk. We want to be in that conversation. And in order to do that, we got to keep winning because, we face obviously a very tough team in New Canaan, obviously very well coached. They've been with Lou there. But, it's where we want to be. We've kind of put ourselves in position to be in the conversation, but now we kind of got to stay there. So we know people keep wanting us to prove it, and we're just excited to keep getting the opportunities to do that. So,
Coach, the FCIAC is weird in the sense that you got a lot of city schools and you got a lot of rich towns that have a lot of resources. I mean, how does a school with maybe that doesn't have all that stuff that Darien or New Canaan has? How do you guys? Well, what's the Norwalk? And there are other things you got to worry about. How does a Norwalk football player? How do they make sure that they become within this discussion here?
Right. That's actually a big theme for us was exactly that. That we might not have all the things that these other schools have, but what we do have is really good players. At the end of the day, all you can go onto the field with are your best 11 guys. So while the other stuff is great, great to have, the drones and the sideline, the huddle sideline stuff, it's great to have. But at the end of the day, it's kids making plays. So we've kind of taken a pride and kind of created an identity around. We might not have everything else, but we're gonna have tough physical kids who compete, and that's who we are. We're gonna walk the walk, meaning Norwalk. Be intensely proud of who we are and where we come from. You walk it. You come into the school, and the billboard to the school is "Welcome to Norwalk High School, home of pride intensified." And I love it. But we try to use that as kind of a rallying cry for us that we're going to be tough, we're going to be physical, and we're going to create that kind of identity.
We spoke. I saw you a lot during the spring. You were a big supporter of the Norwalk baseball team and Coach Ryan Mitchell. Now, I want to say Ryan Mitchell was on the baseball podcast, High and Tight, and then they went on to win the Class AA baseball championship.
Uh-oh.
And I know you and Coach Mitchell talk. You guys are close. You were there when they won. When he's lifting the trophy, you were in the front row at Palmer Field going nuts. How big was them going and winning in Double-L to be like, hey, we can do this here. This is not a place where you can't win.
Right. First off, thanks, Rye, for giving the expectations of a first-year head coach at Norwalk. Thanks for setting the bar that high, buddy. I really appreciate that. No, but it was that exact thing. There, I think the entire football team was there, and we talked after they did it, and I just looked at all of them like, it can be done here. Like, we can do this thing here. Look what just happened. And it was things, you go to that game, and I think for the most part, West Hill was kind of in control of that game. And then Norwalk just kept making that one play to keep them in it and keep them hanging around. And that's something that we talked about. You know, they didn't have Morin going on the mound. You know, that's their guy. They couldn't have him going on the mound, and they still found a way. They still figured out a way to get that done. So we've been talking about that. We talk about that all the time, drawing inspiration from those guys, and couldn't be proud of those guys, and hope they can keep that thing rolling.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, if you guys win, we get like 50% of the credit. I'm just saying.
I'll take that.
You could have it all if we get it, man. You could have it all if we get it. I will say I'm happy you guys have more pictures of me instead of me getting choked out by John Frazzi, which was on all those articles.
Oh, yeah.
Every article is me getting choked out by John.
Yeah, that's because, you know, that's the only, you know.
I know it's the only one you had. I was in the box until that
usually
game.
The reason you were on the sideline was really interesting, though.
Oh, my God. Yeah, our headsets.
Headsets stopped working right before kickoff.
Right before kickoff. We're getting the ball, and I'm running down. I'm running around the edge as the kicker is kicking the ball. I'm in the back of the end zone, sprinting, and you guys say I'm not in the world's best shape. I'm not down for 100-yard sprints before it. So I run down. I get into that spot. Frazzi's like, I called our freeze. You know, we're not calling a play. We're just going through our cadence to give me time. And I'm running down. I'm breathing heavy. I'm like, okay, let's run power. Just trying to figure it out. So yeah, that was crazy, but you know, it's kind of, you feel divine intervention. You know, I was supposed to be down on that sideline, you know, with Coach Frazzi for that moment. So we got it done. So yeah, it was crazy.
You know, you spoke about Zach and Terrence and Jordan, and there's been some really good players who've been in Sheehan the last couple of years. You know, how much fun was getting to coach guys like that who were just special? I mean, I remember one of my first years at the Record Journal, and Bryant Carpenter, the sports editor there, was like, just go follow Sheehan. Yeah. And it was Zach's senior year.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a treat to watch him you knew every time the ball was in, he got 5 yards on a carry. You were like, oh, he's having an off day.
I know. That was my first year of offensive coordinator. And I could, thank God, because I didn't know what I was doing. Just give the ball to 27 over and over and over again. But yeah, someone asked me, you know, especially now with Cam, you know, hey, rank Zach, Terrence, and Cam.
Oh, that was my next question. So.
I'm like, how about I rank the luckiest coach in the state of Connecticut? And I'll take number one. Those three guys, and you even add Jordan Davis into that too. Jordan did so much for us. But those four guys, so special in their own ways. They're all very different personality and even player wise. But the one thing that all those guys had in common was they just want to do their part. You know, they don't want, you know, to be the guy that's talked about. They just want to do their part to get the wins. So I've been extremely lucky to be able to have those guys, and pray that luck keeps coming for me.
Well, I'm looking at, like you said before, Coach, I'm looking at your schedule now, and you want to get that big one right there in front of you. New Canaan coming to your place, which should be great. And then you got Central, Staples, at Darien, at Wilton, and then a bye before you face the rivals from across town. I mean, there's some opportunity there, but by no means will it be anything but tough. So this is great, but you guys got a lot of work ahead. But just must be nice though. At least be in this spot going into the bye.
If we get there, we earned it.
Yeah.
If we get there, we earned it. You know, there's no gimmies in this league. They're too good of players, and you know, it's too well coached to look past any day. So yeah, if we get there, we'll definitely have earned it.
Congratulations on a great start. I mean, it's you know, tremendous. Obviously, long way to go, but it looks like you got the guys to at least make a run at it. I think that's the best that any coach could hope for. You know, just have the guys, and then let's just all work hard and see what we can do with this. So we appreciate you joining us here, giving us a little time here on this Monday morning.
Thanks for having us on, guys, and thanks for everything you do for our game and giving the kids that exposure. They enjoy it. They love it. Even when you pick against us,
which is often.
So no, they love it. We appreciate all you guys do for our game.
All right, Coach. Well,
thank you so much, Coach. Really appreciate it.
So, Pete, that was Pat Miller, and good to see an SEC guy, showing the FCIAC how it's done. No, seriously, though, that great job by him. And as you mentioned before, I don't know what it is with these first-year Norwalk coaches, but 4-0 is not bad. Their big tests are yet to come.
Yeah, it's we're just at the beginning here. I know that we're not technically at the midway part, right? We're going into week 5. There's, I think, 12 or 13 weeks in the season with the buys thrown in there. But, we're going to start seeing who's a contender and who's a pretender soon. And, we'll see. Are the legacy programs going to rise to the top, or are we going to get some new faces crashing the party?
It's refreshing. Darien, St. Joe, New Canaan, Greenwich. Those are your top 4 in the top 10 poll. But and Ridgefield lurking well. But man, it is sure great to see Norwalk. I know the city schools have had it kind of tough in the FCIAC over the last. They haven't had much of a presence here, at least since Norwalk the last time out. There was Bridgeport Central, 10, 15 years ago, that was always kind of in the picture. But it's nice to see one of the more, the city schools and not the suburban schools kind of making their mark here in the FCIAC, kind of showing people who's boss. But that was a big win by him. And like we said, there's still lots to go here and lots to figure out. But you know what? The way other results have happened, I would not be shocked to see Norwalk be able to beat some of these other guys. So I guess we'll call that a podcast, Pete. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And thanks to Pat Miller for giving us a little time here on this Monday. And everyone catch your breath. We got a ways to go here, but things are just getting interesting here in Connecticut high school football. So stick with us next week. We'll see everybody on the Pick'ems podcast. That should be fun. As you heard, completely just laying a big egg in that. And so join us there to see where how bad we can screw it up this week. But so for Pete Pagwaga, I'm Sean Patrick Bowie. This has been the Meek Rider GameTimeCT.
Love you.